going to talk about what classes you'll take your first year of law school. So these are the classes that most standard law schools will have students take their very first year. And just as an overview, the classes that we'll talk about are Civ Pro, Contracts, Torts, Real Property, Crim Law, Constitutional Law, and Legal Writing and Research. So we'll start with Civil Procedure. This is a procedural class. You'll have 2 semesters of it most likely. One semester will focus on the particulars of how to file a lawsuit and the rules for filing a lawsuit and responding to a lawsuit. And the second semester will focus more on the power of a court to hear a case, where you can file a lawsuit, when you can file a lawsuit, things like that. And you might get your semesters flipped, so you might take them in a different order. But basically, you're going to be learning the particulars of a lawsuit. This can honestly be kind of a dry class, but a lot of attorneys say that this class really helped them when they went out to practice in the real world. So that's Civil Procedure. The next class that we'll talk about is Contracts. You'll probably have 1 or 2 semesters of contracts. It tends to be a very difficult class for students because it's really nuanced. You'll learn rules, and then you'll learn exceptions to rules, and then exceptions to the exceptions. So it's really important to have a good outline and start learning right from the beginning if you want to keep track of all these contracts rules. The third class is Torts, which you'll probably have 1 semester of. This tends to be a lot of people's favorite class because it's really hard to make torts boring. You'll learn things about assault, battery, self-defense, different claims that you might have against someone else. The cases are pretty interesting, and the class usually tends to be pretty entertaining. Next, you'll probably have 1 semester of Real Property. Some law schools, like University of Michigan, does not have Real Property their first year, and I recommend you take it if you happen to be at one of those law schools that does not require it, because it will help you on the bar exam. But Real Property tends to be a difficult class, similar to how Contracts is difficult. Real Property also tends to be pretty difficult for students. You learn about conveyances of land, and some of the terminology is hard to grasp. It was probably one of my favorite classes in law school, so you might find you really enjoy it, but it does tend to be a difficult class. Next is Criminal Law. Criminal law is usually pretty entertaining, even if you're not all that interested in criminal law. Of course, you'll learn about crimes like murder, manslaughter. You'll learn about defenses to crimes. And again, the cases are usually pretty interesting. So even if criminal law isn't really your thing, you probably won't find the class to be boring. Next is Constitutional Law. A lot of students get excited when they hear they're taking Constitutional Law because they're excited to learn about free speech and things like that. But unfortunately, you don't really learn about that your first year of law school. Most law schools will teach you that in your second or third year. So for Constitutional Law, you'll be learning the basics, and you'll be learning a slightly more boring part of Constitutional Law, but still a really important part of Constitutional Law. Like, for example, the powers of the president and Congress, and things like the Dormant Commerce Clause, which aren't that exciting, but it provides a really good foundation. And then lastly, you'll probably have a Legal Writing and Research class. The vast majority of law schools require some kind of legal writing and research class the first year, and oftentimes they'll require 2 semesters of this, where you learn how to write a brief and a memo. And this can be a really useful class. In fact, a lot of attorneys say that this class helped them the most when they went out to practice, because they actually knew how to structure a memo and how to structure a brief and how to write an argument and how to cite cases and all those other important things, which are actually very important when you get out to practicing in the real world. So that's an overview of the classes that you'll take your first year of law school.